One thing that we've come across, Cary, is the block and flip technique, which is where a park will make it almost impossible for a resident or a holiday park owner to sell their units. And often they'll stop estate agents coming onto the site and they'll make it very difficult for anyone to sell it privately. Have you got any experience with this or anything that you can discuss in relation to this?
Caravan parks may offer a price 15% or less. This is when they're buying, than the bottom selling price, as it was, to an owner wishing to sell. And the park may even have first refusal. Caravan park sellers to the retail customer are unlikely to sell new units at the manufacturer's recommended retail price. It's more likely that the selling price will be inflated in order to either offer a discount off it or include so-called free services such as siting and connection of gas, electricity, water services, steps, TV aerial, and site fees for a season, and sometimes maybe even decking. The large parks will have these 20-year age limits, but the smaller ones might have no age limitation, and often caravans over 20 years old are allowed to continue to be started provided that they are in good condition, well maintained, and presented and meeting relevant health and safety legislation. Now, that proves there's no legal requirement for caravans over 20 years old having to be excluded from a park. The large parks might say, well, it's old and it's a detriment to the overall ambience of the park, but there's no legal requirement for them not to be there. It's the large parks that include the age limitation, and on the face of it, simply a method of improving profits, as the customer will either have to part exchange their caravan for a new one or remove it, and that's a story in itself. Now, I know of a park, it was a family park taken over by what I call a big boy. And the old park, they had no age policy at all. The new park took over, and someone went into the office and was told that a new owner's agreement superseded the old owner's agreement. And they asked if anybody else had they were given this agreement. They didn't sign it. They asked if anybody else had received one of these agreements, and that they were told no one else has asked for it. Now, that person was then, they were told they wouldn't be allowed to remain on the park from the beginning of November, despite questions about why and comments that were made to them, in that a way could be found, or it appeared to be a way that could be found, that they could remain on the park. When they asked for details, no details were forthcoming, and so they had no option but to remove the caravan.